Hey, Rena. Hey, Jim.
Hey, Jason. And
Hi, everybody.
hi, everybody listening. Welcome to the Human Happy Hour. We're your hosts, Jason Argento and Rena Goldman. And today we are here with a special guest who's a master storyteller and acclaimed author, Jim DeFilippi. You know what? I should have asked you to pronounce your name before we got on.
Filippi
Everybody in my family says it different. Just say DeFilippi.
DeFilippi.
or
Okay.
Dr.
That's
D?
fine,
Dr. D?
Dr.
Uh,
D. Only
so
when I'm on the basketball court. Sorry to interrupt.
No,
I'll
that's
shut
all
up
right.
now.
no, this is totally fine. Uh, yeah, I just realized usually I ask guests before we start to like verify pronunciation, and I didn't. Yeah, so Jim's life journey from Long Island to Vermont has been a colorful one, filled with diverse roles, including teaching, journalism, and even cigar making. His novels have garnered critical acclaim, blending suspense, humor, and fresh perspectives. Join us as we dive into Jim's insights on happiness, storytelling, and the human experience. So, welcome, Jim. Thank you for being with us, and welcome to all of our listeners.
Oh, thank you, Rena. Thank you, Jason.
You. I'm pretty excited. I'm really worried about it only being an hour because I tell you, when I was doing research on this, I was just like, so I even watched a couple of documentaries on Martha.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, she was
Thank
amazing.
you.
And Rena was saying before the show, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was just saying because I was doing research before also, and I really wasn't familiar with Martha, and I was an English major, and I can remember going through Hemingway and learning about all these other people, and I'm like, why was there a huge gap? Why is this the first time,
Absolutely.
that I'm
Yeah,
learning
no,
about
it's a
this person?
terrible thing. I'm hoping to battle a little of that with this book, but she was married to him for 5 years, and he just completely overshadowed her in reputation, and it was very unfair. She was as good a writer and as a better war correspondent than he ever was. But it's feminism. That's what the book deals with too.
Yeah. Is it true that he stole her ticket to go to Normandy, went to Paris, and was partying while she pretended to be a nurse on a Navy ship to get to the battle?
Yeah, that's a true story. That's in the book. She uh,
Oh,
she she had war correspondence credentials from Collier magazine because she's been covering World War II for a couple of years. He decides everybody knows the Normandy invasion is coming, so he talks Collier's into giving him her credentials so that he can cover Normandy, and she's left not able to be there. Well, he gets drunk, gets into a car crash in London, and spends the Normandy invasion in a hotel room in London. She, meanwhile, without credentials, sneaks on board a Navy medical ship, and she becomes the only female to land at Normandy. I think I forget the number, but something like 260,000 men and Martha Gellhorn. Can I hold the book up now, Jason?
oh
I'm
yeah, go
gonna
for it.
sooner or later. It's all covered here in whoa, this book. I'm really proud of it. It's Busting Stones: The Trials and Treasures of Martha Gellhorn. And my books usually don't make much of a splash, but this one came out, and the next day, Amazon named it the number one new release in women's history studies. I have no idea how that
Nice.
happened, but I'm not complaining.
Oh, that's
So
wonderful.
anyway, I do a little bit of try to get Martha's name in front of the public.
Yeah,
She deserves it.
we haven't said her
So,
last name yet, have we? Gellhorn, right?
Yeah, Gellhorn, right?
Martha Gellhorn.
so what made you interested in her, and how did you first learn about her and
I
decide to
I
dive deep into
I,
this?
I'm mostly a humor writer and a crime novelist, but I put out a book last year on a hitman, a biography of the hitman Trigger Burke, and everybody really responded to it. So I said, "Well, I've got to do another biography." And I looked around. I said, "I should do a woman this time. It's just for change." And I came down to two. It was between Martha Gellhorn and a gal named Anna Sage, who was the woman in red who fingered the FBI for John Dillinger. They shot down Dillinger coming out of a theater because she said, I'll be with him and, I'll wear a red dress. I thought that was a terrific story too. But I looked up the both of them. There was almost nothing on Sage, just a few paragraphs. I couldn't find anything. And there was a ton of things on Martha Gellhorn, just book after book. I should hype a better book than mine, to tell the truth. This is her biography. It's by a Brit named Carolyn Moorhead, and she did a lot of great research. So anyway, that's what I keyed off. I keyed off this book, and then I decided to tell the story of women's lib in the 20th century, because Martha's life spanned the 20th century. She was born in 1908 and killed herself in 1998. So that's how it came to be.
Wow. Wow. She
Yeah.
killed herself?
She did. She committed suicide, and I expostulate in the book that three things caused it. She helped liberate Dachau, the German death camp in World War II, and that completely destroyed her. And then she lived through Vietnam. She covered that, and she couldn't believe the horror of that mess. And then finally, she was personally raped while living in North Africa, well into her early 80s. And those three things just kind of, to me, scrambled her mind and just led to her suicide.
Well, so I'm a journalist and I do a lot of health and lifestyle and that. So it sounds like she had a lot of PTSD that probably would have been undiagnosed, and she wouldn't have been able to get any kind of help. That's a lot of trauma for one person.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I do a chapter on that too, Rena, about she had all the symptoms of post-traumatic stress syndrome. And it's a sad story. I originally planned to end the book with her suicide, but I'm in this terrific writers group called the Carrot Cakes, of all things. And the Carrot Cakes all say, you can't end on a downer like this. So I added an extra chapter where I pay homage to all the women in my life who somehow carry on the spirit of Martha Gellhorn. They're tough, they're strong, they're committed, and that's my final chapter. If anybody doesn't feel like reading the whole book, I hope they read the last chapter and see how I feel about the women in my life.
I couldn't find it on audiobook. Am I wrong? Should I look more?
Yeah, no, I haven't done it on audiobook. I just have it in paperback and on ebook. I really should get around to doing that. For just an independent writer like me, that's a lot of work.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm really into audiobooks. So, but
yeah,
I don't know. But I might just read this one instead. I don't know. It's hard for me to keep focused. I have ADHD, so I really need audio. But I might be able to find you someone to help you to read it for you, because between you, I, and Joe, and other people we know, Rusty and stuff, we could probably find a really great person to read it.
Gee, that would be great. Yeah, let's think about that, Jason. Yeah, I'd love that.
Okay, yeah, I'll get on it.
Yeah, I know, because a lot of people listen to podcasts and they probably listen to audiobooks while they commute and things.
Yeah, I have a lot of friends who do that, and you're right. Some of them are either hard to focus, or they have long travel in their life, and I don't use them myself. I've tried one and I just couldn't get into it, but I know a lot of people who live and die by the audiobook.
I can't either, because I'm a writer also, and I like to see the punctuation that other writers use, and I just like to see it on the page.
Yeah, so do I. I just love the written page. I go halfway between ebooks and paperbacks. Either one, I can't even remember what I'm reading half the time. I'll be reading a paperback and come across a word that I don't understand, so I'll start tapping it, on the page, saying, "Oh, this will give me a definition." And it doesn't work with paperbacks. I found it only works with ebooks.
To zoom in, pinch out.
Yeah, right, pinch out. Yeah, and it doesn't work.
I did that with a magazine once.
I was saying, "Oh, this is pretty cheap. I've got a lousy paperback here. It doesn't define for me."
It's funny how our brains have now adapted to all these screens, because now I'll look at a paper book or a paper packet or something, and I'll go, well, I can't search this. Like, 'cause I'm so
Yeah.
used to hitting the Control F and searching for specific things. And it's like,
Yeah.
this is
No,
just too hard.
no, it's true.
archaic.
And sometimes this whole Google search thing works against you.
Yeah.
I carried a transportable air conditioner down from the second floor yesterday. It was really heavy. So my wife says, "How much does this thing weigh?" So I said, "Oh, it was really hard. It must have been 200, 300 pounds." So she Googled it. It was 40 pounds. Made me look like an idiot and a weak idiot, but you got to live with that, I guess.
It must be 300 pounds.
Oh, I swear this thing was huge. I'm old and I'm weak, but I mean, I used to when I was in Vermont. Oh, by the way, your introduction made it sound like I still live in Vermont. I don't. I've moved to Salem, Massachusetts. But back in Vermont, I used to be able to pick up a 50-pound bale of hay without too much trouble. And I think getting old made this air conditioner seem like about 10 times, heavier than that.
Wow, I love Salem. I've been there so many times. I love Salem, Massachusetts. So fun.
Oh yeah, it's a great town. I don't go into town this coming month in October because 1 million visitors come into town. 1 million. You can't drive from one end of Salem to the other in less than 3 hours in October. It's crazy.
This happens every October?
Yeah.
Every October.
It's a huge event. Like everybody's cosplay and LARPing and street vendors.
Absolutely. You'll ride on a train and Dracula will be there and there'll be a bunch of zombies sitting next to you. And the town has this rich history in navigation and sailing and in literature, Nathaniel Hawthorne. But it's the witches that bring the money in, and I guess we can't complain. There's a shop who year-round sell one object: magic wands.
Yes,
that's all
I have one. I have one.
Oh, do you?
I do.
Yeah. So it's a crazy town, but I just love it.
Oh wow, yeah. The funniest thing about that, whenever I'm there, I'm always like, this place is famous for witches that weren't actually there. Like, that's kind of the whole point. Is nope.
Yeah, no, it's kind of a shame. Yeah. Kind of a sad thing. And if you boil it right down to the literal accuracy of the history, it was a horrible experience. It's nothing that we should be celebrating.
Yeah.
But as I say, the money and the tourist money comes in. So what are you going to do?
Yeah, no, that's a great town though. It's very interesting.
It is. I'm in a group called Salem Writers, and they're just terrific. They're just excellent people. I couldn't have written the book without them.
Oh wow. Huh. That's so fascinating.
So I want to ask, just for people watching, how do you two know each other? What's the background there?
Me and Jason,
Mm-hmm.
we met through Joe Citro. Citro, who was your guest, I think, last week or the week before. Citro and I have been friends since, I think the mid-'80s. And he introduced me to Jason, and that's how we got to know each other. Yep. Yeah. But when my kids were growing up, every Christmas Eve, we'd have a Joe Citro lookalike contest. Because Joe thinks he's a really distinctive guy. He wears this straw hat and has this beard and this look and eyeglasses. And there's a dime a dozen Joe Citro lookalikes, I swear. So every year we'd go around the table and we'd pick out the person we saw looked like Citro, but was completely different from Citro's lifestyle. For example, one year, a barrel jumper in the rodeo won it. And he looked just like Citro, but he was on a horse called Breeze, and he was jumping barrels in a rodeo. So that won it that year. We don't do it so much anymore. The kids are grown, but the Joe Citro lookalike contest is a tradition in the DeFilippi family.
I hope he's watching. He hasn't commented yet. But
yeah, no, I'm sure after I get off the show, he'll be nailing me and I'll be nailing him.
Oh, that's excellent. I remember when we were talking in Facebook chat, I was telling you, is it weird that I'd like to talk about Hitler? Because I love World War II. I cannot get enough World War II documentaries, even though it always makes me feel bad. I'm always bad afterwards. But
You shouldn't be, because I noticed I was noted as a historian on your promo, but yeah, I also wrote this book, which I'm very proud of, The Mules of Monte Cassino, which talks about a battle that we don't like to talk about in America because it was so badly run. But I have a visual aid here since we were going to bring up Hitler. Can you read that? The word Führer is spelled with two little dots over the U. And the reason is Hitler wanted to have a smiley face, ingratiate him with the people. I'm lying now. That's not what happened.
I was gonna say. I was like, he
but
was a
it
nut.
does look like a smiling face to me.
It does definitely. What's that thing called? Someone must know here besides me.
Oh yeah, Uber something, or I forget. But yeah, I love love is a bad word, but I love World War II too, Jason, and I'm very proud of that book too, Mules of Monte Cassino.
Oh wow, great. Yeah. So I also wanted to talk about now Martha, she also, when she went to the camps, and you said that she committed suicide later, right? Like well after Vietnam,
later,
right?
Yeah.
Actually, a lot of people that went there, a lot of the American soldiers that went there committed suicide as well. Like, and I don't know if they count that in the death toll, but I think they should.
I'm going to pause you for a moment and do a conscious language lesson, which you're going to think nuts, but because I do a lot of writing in the health and mental health and wellness space, we now say died by suicide rather than committed, because committed implies that you have committed a crime, or done something. And people who die by suicide are in a lot of pain and going through something, and and so to say that they're committing a crime is
how about die by your own hand, Rena? Would you accept that as complimentary is the wrong word, but
you could say, I mean, you could say that.
It's a good change. I think that.
I mean, I've heard some people say like they took their life, like, or something like that. But I think, but that language in committed, because we use that as in criminal acts.
Sure, I understand that. Yeah, good point.
It's a good change. I appreciate
it. It is, yeah.
I'm very steeped in that language world because of the type of reporting and writing that I do, and so I just want to make sure that we're being sensitive to anybody who has somebody maybe in the family, that they've lost.
I like that. I noticed the people who study plane crashes now have tried to get away from that term. I think they want to change it to mishap. I may have that all screwed up, but there's certain words that you're right. They carry connotations that they shouldn't carry.
Well, PTSD used to be shell shock.
Sure, it had a lot of different names. Yeah. Back in the revolutionary time, believe it or not, they called shell shock nostalgia. He died of nostalgia, which doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But it's a shell shock. It's soldier's disease. It's battle fatigue.
Battle fatigue. Yep.
Yeah, there's been so many.
George Carlin has a bit on the whole thing about that.
Oh, does he?
Yeah.
Well, talk about a man who could use words. He was just brilliant at that. I love Carlin.
Oh, me too. He's my fave. Miss him. I wonder what he would have said about now.
Boy, I don't know. Would have had plenty of material, that's for sure.
Oh my goodness.
I don't know, or he may have just left and gone into a cave and been like, "I'm done. Like, this has just gotten, this is too much."
Yeah,
so
probably.
Do you ever get writer's block?
No. I turn out a ridiculous amount of books. I've turned out 5 books in a year, some years. That's why I go through Amazon to do my books, because they're so quick and so efficient. And people ask me, why don't you get writer's block? And what it is a low level of quality. People with writer's block are afraid they're going to write something lousy. I don't care. I'm just down there writing. I judge my books one way, Jason, and that is how much fun I've had writing them. That's the only thing. It's not how many people read them, how much I change the world, how much money I make out of them. if I'm giggling to myself as I'm writing and enjoying myself, the book's a success.
I had a
You know,
feeling.
that is the way to do it, honestly. And that makes sense once you say that about writer's block, because like I will get blocked, but the writing that I do is for money or for a purpose or for like research a topic, and it's been assigned, and sometimes you're like just struggling with how to formulate it, how to put it together, how to best communicate that to an audience. And yeah, if you're just writing for pleasure, it's a big.
You're right, Rena. I've tried to do your kind of writing and make a living, or at least get paid for it, and it's very, very difficult, isn't it? It's just a lot of roadblocks. No, I just do it for personal enjoyment.
Well, speaking of writing and jobs and stuff like that, how are you feeling about AI?
Oh, I don't know. I just don't understand it enough to really appreciate it. I don't think anybody's going to AI a novel like, for example, I could do it, or George V. Higgins could do it. These are the people I love. Elmore Leonard could do it. I just think it's the accent is on the artificial, and I think it's always going to be artificial, no matter what. But I don't know. It's a little scary, isn't it?
It's exciting and scary at the same time to me. So yeah. I mean, it helps me a ton because.
How does it help you, Jason? What do you use it for?
Well, for instance, I took everything about you and put it into ChatGPT, which is an AI thing, and then I asked it to write a introduction, and then we tweaked it a little bit, of course. But
wow!
And then I asked it to come up with questions, and then I added some and subtracted some and changed some, but it gave me a bunch. I also used
That's
it
amazing.
Right before the show. I said, give me 10 weird, strange, interesting questions to ask Jim because it knew everything about you. So then it gave me 10 of those questions, which I'm happy to give you one or two if you want, anytime you want. They're pretty funny. Actually.
Yeah, boy, that is scary. That's amazing.
It's kind of scary.
I think it can be good for help with brainstorming and like doing like I will use it sometimes to like formulate citations. So yeah, because that's just kind of a pain thing. And if I have to format a citation, I'll say, here's this information. Can you put this in APA citation format? And for me, and like things like that. But I would never want to read a novel written by AI.
No, I agree.
Like I want humans to write my creative content. I feel like that's the point of it.
Would you be upset if you accidentally enjoyed a novel that was written by AI but didn't know until the end?
I don't think I would, because I can point it out all the time. Like I know every time you use AI, Jason.
Well, it's every time pretty much. I'm starting to AI my texts.
Yeah, but oh God. Please write your text.
You'll both be surprised to know that this isn't me here. I've just AI'd myself.
It's a deep fake.
I'm at Costco right now.
I think, aren't they doing that with like trying to do that with actors?
Yes, they're doing it with more than actors.
Part of the strike is on that. But technology can be so intrusive. I just got an Apple Watch for Christmas, and it just starts talking to me. It just told me a minute ago how much an average crocodile weighs. And I didn't ask that. It just started telling me that. So I have to take it off and put it away from the screen now. So I don't know. I'm just too old to exist with any of this stuff. It's just way beyond me.
Well, that could be a mood killer, can it?
It can really, yeah.
Suddenly, the average crocodile weighs.
Yeah. And they don't get offended if you say, did I ask? Did I want to know that? You talk back to it, they don't care. So it's way beyond me, guys. I'm old, I'm tired.
Oh my God.
I mean, I'm not as old as you, and I don't like any of that. Like I don't enable like the Siri or any of those things because I don't like them talking out of nowhere. I don't think they work well, and I don't think that they're helpful. And I think they do like what you're saying is they just start, they think that you're talking to them.
If you cooperate with them, they'll help you more.
You're
being resistant, so you have to talk with it so it understands you more.
I don't want to talk with it. I can Google it or read something faster myself.
You can speed it up.
Yeah, my daughter listens to a podcast and she speeds up the sound, the
Yeah.
speed. I can't follow that at all. I have
Yeah.
no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
I bet you do that, Jason. Though, do you?
I do it 1.5 speed.
And you can understand the conversation and stick with it, huh?
Depends on who it is, because some people, everyone's talking way too fast to begin with, and I'll keep it at normal. But if it's if they're like blardy blar blar, I'll speed it up.
Wow.
Yeah. I do that with every sexual harassment training that I've had to take, like for different corporate companies, because they speak so slowly. And I'm like, I do not have 2 hours to watch this. And so I
watch it in an hour.
The two,
Now,
the
see,
2 speed or 1.5 speed.
I'm at a different age. I used to listen to these two very funny guys called Bob and Ray. And one of their interviews was with the Society of Slow Talkers of America. And the interviewer would get really frustrated and say, we're meeting. Yeah, you're meeting here today. We know. Here today. You're meeting here today. Yeah, go on. To be physical. Well, anyway, that's the way it works. But I'm a slow talker. You wouldn't believe it from this.
Oh no, you're not. I don't notice it.
Oh, thank you.
Not at all. Oh my God, that's hilarious. Want one of the questions just for fun? We won't go into it.
Yeah,
much.
Let me hear a computer generated question.
Okay, if you could co-author a book with any historical figure, who would it be and why?
The answer to your no, let me think. That would be hard. One of the people would have to be FDR.
Oh wow, yeah.
I didn't appreciate Roosevelt until I started reading books by a guy named Craig Nelson, who's been very good for my career. But among other things, in the early 30s, in his first term, FDR wasn't only battling the Depression, but he was already gearing up for World War II. He was already turning us into a industrial society that could quickly convert to the military. Wow. The guy was amazing, just phenomenal. I read a lot of Craig Nelson's books. One of the things I learned, you always learn these little quirks. Eleanor Roosevelt, when she went out, she packed heat. She had a gun in her purse.
Oh my God!
And I just don't picture that. You know?
No, not at all.
But I guess it was such a there was such hatred, and that again, getting back to my book, that's the whole theme, or one of the themes of the book, is that people know that if you can get a large quantity of people hating something, you can become politically and potentially very strong, and you can also get rich at it. As you know, there's a lot of politicians doing it right now.
That's how fascism
Hitler wasn't
starts.
the first, he won't be the worst. But you get people hating, and you can make a nice profit from that.
Yeah, and turn everything into a fascist society.
Yeah, sadly enough, you can do it.
So having studied World War II and Hitler and all of these things, and written some of these books, how do you feel about the climate right now with a lot of the rhetoric and the rise of some of these fascist groups?
Half of me gets really depressed because I've never seen a society that's so absurd as the modern American society, the way that nobody can say anything to the other side. There used to be an aisle between the two political parties, and now it's a Grand Canyon. So that part of me says, oh, this is awful. This is the worst it's ever been. And then I start looking back, and I think in the 30s, we had a depression. In the 40s, we had a world war that millions of people died in. Things haven't been so bad, Things in 2023, at least there's no nuclear bombs going off, at least not yet. And so I don't know. I guess my short answer is, it's not too late to make a short answer. I'm torn between the two. Sometimes I think this is the worst state in history, and sometimes I think it's not so bad.
Yeah, it can be both, though. It can be like
Yeah,
bad in some ways and good in others.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the fascism thing. Isn't that what happened in Italy? Didn't he like come to power, fire everybody, and then kill all his opponents, and then declared martial law? I mean, can that happen in the United States? I mean, certainly Trump would dare to do it.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, would it succeed? Like, you know?
Yeah, hard to tell. Mussolini did it in Italy, and Stalin, of course, and yeah, it can be done, and it's all, as I
Overnight.
say, based on haste. Yeah, I like to think the Trump thing is going to peter out. I mean, he's an old man, and all these guys are trying to be the new Trump, keep stumbling over themselves. They don't do it like it. I have no idea how that guy does what he does. When he first started this political career, I said, 7% of the people are dumb enough to follow this guy. It's going to be scary.
Mm-hmm.
And then he gets like 49% of the electorate. I don't understand it. Just don't understand it at all.
Yeah.
I mean, most of it is just the quality of living has declined for so many people. And so
Yeah.
people are just no longer, when you can't meet your basic needs, you can't go to work and bring home what you need to bring home to put food on the table, roof over your head, all of these basic things.
Absolutely.
It
Mhm.
fills people with desperation, with rage. And I'll say, like, even in California is where I live, that's supposed to be has a reputation of being a very like liberal place. Even in the past few years, we have seen a lot of these like fascist groups, and they're not just like Trumpers. There's a lot of these like little splintered off groups, and they will come in, they will protest like LGBTQ plus, like anything in the schools, and they'll be violent, and it's concerning to see these people rising. And there are even walking around my neighborhood, there'll be like Nazi symbolism and things that were not really noticeable before. And so there's definitely a shift, and I don't think that it's all Trump. It's like you don't just have to worry about Trump. I mean, yeah, he's terrible, but there's all these other groups, and once people have bought into that ideology, like they've bought in. And I think that's the scary thing. And a lot of these people don't even want to be reasoned with. They want to just exterminate certain groups. Yeah. And that's what's really terrifying.
It really is. Yeah. Because on day-to-day life, I don't meet people like that. I see them on the news, and maybe I pass them in the street, but I just think human beings are basically so good that this has to be overcome, I hope.
Yeah, I mean, there are people that are fighting on the other side of it too, like, trying to push these people back, and and protect these marginalized communities that are being attacked. Yeah. So I mean, yeah, I think people have capacity for great good and great bad all at this.
Yeah, and as I said, I call them Iscariots in the book. It's a word I coined. Is a politician or a leader who knows how to feed on that distrust. They're good people, but you're right. They're without a job. The wife's driving them crazy. They're in a tiny little apartment. So sure, they're going to start hating something, other than themselves. And I think Rush Limbaugh gets not enough discredit. I think he started this modern view of things because he realized on his radio show, boy, I can make a lot of money and I can get a lot of power if I feed into this distrust and hatred. And it's done all the time. It's a shame.
Yeah, I saw this documentary, and one of the things that stuck out the most was this coal miner. And they were talking to him, and he said, I knew Trump was lying when he said he was going to bring back the coal industry, but at least he acknowledged my existence.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, well, there it is. I mean,
how you can argue with that? Yeah, that's amazing. Wow. It's the same with abortion. Trump will take any stand on abortion.
Oh yeah.
Depending what will further his career.
Oh yeah.
It's awful.
Absolutely. So I had to look up what Duck Alley was because I did not know. So Long Island. somewhere in Long Island?
Yeah, it's a little section of a town called Manhasset on the North Shore of Long Island. Yep.
Okay. How did that affect you or influence any of your writing?
Oh yeah, I actually did a book. I don't have it with me
Oh,
now
Duck Alley.
called Duck Alley.
Yeah.
What happened was a pal of mine, Johnny Allen, and I grew up in Duck Alley, this hard-nosed little blue-collar town, and we did all these funny things. Like on Halloween, we would just go into another friend's yard and just start digging a hole in his backyard, and just so he'd look out there and see two guys digging a hole. And I had tons of stories like that, silly stories, but I decided to string them all together with a plot. And so I made up a plot of these two friends who wind up betraying each other, and one goes to prison, et cetera, et cetera. And I turned it into a novel called Duck Alley. And the clothesline all these little jokes are hung on is this sad tragedy. And it became a pretty good selling, one of my commercially successful books, one of the few. And it's called Duck Alley. You can still get it.
It's on
I think
Amazon.
either in hard copy or paperback. And still people will say that's their favorite book of mine. But yeah, but basically it was just a little blue collar neighborhood.
Yeah, I have the link to your books on Amazon in the description.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah. And they run the gamut. I just
Oh, yeah.
I,
So many genres.
yeah, they really are. And they're continuing it.
What's your favorite
I'm thinking
genre?
of doing science fiction one year. I've got a book plotted out, but I've never read any science fiction.
Oh my God,
And so,
I'll brainstorm with you. I know everything about science fiction.
oh, okay, great. Yeah.
Everything. Every last.
I'm going to Google that.
I'm the biggest,
Yeah.
greatest science fiction fan in the world. I can't do a Trump.
Oh, well, mine would be a little bit of satirics, would be a little bit of satire. But yeah, when I get around to, I'm working on something else now, but
Yeah.
I'll give you a call, Jason, when I
Yeah,
get to
and I'll
a
also
science
recommend
fiction
some
project.
stuff. Cool.
Thank you. The only thing I've ever read was the Trilogy Foundation by Isaac Asimov, which was great. But other than that, I've never touched a science fiction book.
Wow. All
Yeah.
right. I have some assignments for you.
Okay.
Oh my God.
Jim, do you always self-publish or do you work with a publisher?
Yeah, no, I like to tell people I started at the top of the publishing realm and worked my way down. Back in the 90s, I published a novel, a crime novel with HarperCollins, and I got a nice advance, and people were talking about Elmore Leonard and me, and boy, the future looked bright. The book undersold and got remaindered, and my career basically was shanghaied at that point. So I did the Duck Alley book with a smaller publisher, and since then I can't even get smaller publishers or agents to listen to me. But that's not going to stop me from writing. So I do all. I don't. The term we talked about verbs before. It's not self published, Rena. It's independently published. Please.
Okay.
It's self-publishing went out in the 1990s, but I just love it. I do it with the KDP program with Amazon. They treat me right. I treat them right. I finish a book on Thursday, and on Friday it's got worldwide distribution. Anybody in the world. I mean, there's not millions of people buying it, but that's the way it goes. So anyway, yeah, I love independent publishing, or you can also call it direct publishing. That's acceptable, true, but never self-publishing. That's a curse word.
Well, thank you for teaching me that. Actually,
Well, thanks.
I've never, obviously, I've never done my own book. I only am in journalism and research and so forth, so I'm not as familiar with that process.
Yeah, I mean, 90% of the time you're going to sell, copies to your friends and things. But I've got at least 2 or 3 relatives and friends who hit the big time. I have a relative who wrote a romantic novel. It was made into a movie called Forever Yours, I think. And I have a friend who lives down the road who sold 80,000 copies of a series of assassin books. And boy, HarperCollins isn't selling any 80,000 copies of any book. So it can be done. But to tell the truth, it's so easy, and there's no gatekeeper, that there's millions of absolutely horrible books on Amazon and anywhere else, all independently published. So it's hard getting, I can't get my head above that water and sell a lot of books, but that's okay. I've known 2 or 3 people who've broken through into the big time by independently publishing. You should try it sometime if you have an idea, Rena, for a book and you'd like to try it. Go ahead and do it. I'm not guaranteeing a lot of money or a lot of readership, but I bet you'd enjoy yourself.
I think that's sort of what I want to get back to, is enjoy, because when you do it for money, you just don't enjoy it anymore. It becomes work, it becomes a job. So I think that independent publishing probably is a great way to go if you just are writing for the love of it.
It is. Yeah. No,
do you
I'm
work with
lucky.
an editor? Do you just, maybe a friend or somebody do you work with somebody?
I do. My writing group is really good, and I do have some other people who will read the things. Mostly I have a proofreader, a guy named Jeff Hewitt, who for $100, I shouldn't be saying the number, but really cheap, he'll proofread my book for me before it gets out. And I don't know if you know about it, right? Well, you would know this. You can go over something 1,000 times and swear there's no mistakes in it. And I'll send it off to, I call him Fuzzy Hewitt, and he'll find a typo on every single page, and he's good. Sometimes, I remember once I put a closed parentheses in italics instead of in regular font, and he caught it. So
wow.
That's my big help. I do like friends and editors and helpers and supporters, but I think you need a good proofreader.
Yeah, I guess that's why I asked, because any writer, you could be amazing and still, because it's your work, you're too close to it, and so you're not going to see that typo or yeah.
And you think if you read it a second time or a third time that you're going to catch it, but you don't. You start hearing what you thought you'd written, and it gets ingrained in your mind, and you know that you didn't misspell that word. So yeah, I would recommend it. But yeah, give it a try. I think you'll enjoy yourself. I'm lucky, I've got a teacher's retirement from the state of Vermont. I've got Social Security, so I'm paying the bills. I don't care about that. I'm writing because I love it.
So you guys don't use Grammarly or anything like?
Nah, I mean Pages, which is they'll catch little things. But to tell the truth, I'm busting more grammar rules when I write books than I'm following. I mean, it wouldn't help me. I'm making up words. As I told you before, I told you someone who bases their political career on hatred in my book is called an Iscariot, after the Bible. Someone who hates women is called a Chauvin, after chauvinist. And I even coined the word palamine, Palomine, which is a buddy, a good palamine, So no, a spell check doesn't do it. It's a spell check horror. I have to do it my own way.
Yeah, and I use, Jason, I'll use Grammarly just for my professional writing, just to really to catch any punctuation that you miss, or typo, or sometimes you'll just accidentally type the wrong word and it'll catch stuff like that. But otherwise, it's not going to really help with voice tone, or if you're writing a really creative piece, it's just kind of helps me with that basic, oh, I forgot to put a comma in there, or I typed the wrong word, or something like that.
Yeah, I agree.
I wanted to also ask you about how did the Vietnam experience influence your writing?
And my life too. I was very lucky. It was 1968. I was teaching school back on Long Island, and I got drafted. They were the school, the draft board had so many people, the exemptions, that they started drafting school teachers. So they said, DeFilippi, you're gonna have to go serve in Vietnam.
Wow.
So that week, Life magazine came out with a pictorial essay on all the kids, and I call them kids, who had been killed in Vietnam that week. And I think we were losing 500 kids a week in Vietnam. So this pictorial was pictures of them mostly high school graduation pictures, and I was older than that. And every one of them would have the branch of service written underneath it. And it would be U.S. Army, U.S. Army, U.S. Marines, U.S. Army, U.S. Marines. So I paged through the 15 pages and I didn't see any U.S. Air Force.
Yeah.
So I decided to join the Air Force. It was for 4 years instead of 2, but I never got to Vietnam. They just sent me up to Alaska. I was a military policeman and I was typing ID cards. So it didn't affect my life at all. I've got some good friends here in Salem, some writers that have just, their whole life is, and their whole writing life and personal life are just imbued with Vietnam and the horrors they saw over there. I do a section in Break Busting Stones about the My Lai massacre, and it's just incredibly horrible. But on a personal level, Jason, to answer your question, very little. I went to Alaska. My wife, I was already married. My wife went up there and got a job teaching school, and we came out of it with money in the bank. You know, it was fine. And most of all, our lives. I have a high school buddy killed over there, and some other people whose names are on the wall, but my name never got close to it, and I'm happy to that. Yeah.
Today we are at the 10-minute mark.
Wow.
Yeah, I thought it was going to go fast.
Yeah.
Yep. So Rena, do you have any favorite things you want to ask him? Anything that you haven't?
I don't know if we have time to like. There's so many questions and so many
It's a
things.
lot.
I maybe. How about what is your favorite fact or thing that you learned about Martha Gellhorn while you were writing that book?
Mostly how, as I say, Hemingway overshadowed her. She would give interviews later in life, and if Hemingway's name was ever mentioned, she wouldn't even want to get interviewed. So I decided to honor that. And in the book, I never mention his name. I call him the bloated proser. Bloated because both his image and his body was kind of bloated, and proser because he was always a prose writer rather than a poet. And I just came to realize I think she was as good a writer. I don't know, but I think she was as good a writer as he was. But you walk up to people and you mention her name, and either one of two things happen. They say, don't know her, or they say, oh yeah, didn't she marry Hemingway? Well, yeah, she did, but that wasn't the main thing.
She was friends with the president's family too.
Yeah. Her mother, who was a great suffragette back in St. Louis in the early 1900s, knew Eleanor Roosevelt, and so got Martha one of her first big jobs during the Depression. Martha Gellhorn would go around the country covering how the Depression was hurting people and hurting families. And that's another thing she did a great job as a war correspondent. When somebody else was writing about the number of bombs being dropped on Laos and Cambodia, she was interviewing the families living in huts who were being burned by the napalm. She was always interested in the common person, which is a terrific way to write. But there's that. If you have time, I could get into my cigar making.
Oh, yes. Of course.
Okay, good. I'm a cigar smoker. I smoke about 20 cigars a year. Not many, just in the good weather, because my wife won't let me smoke in the house. So I go out once a week. And so I decided, well, I could do this. I could make my own cigars. So I bought some seeds. This is 20 years ago on the internet, and started, and this is when we lived in an old farmhouse in Vermont. I started growing my own tobacco plants, and I was great at it. There's pictures of me with 7-foot high plants and, leaves as big as your head. So I said, oh, this is going to be easy. And so I turned my garage into a curing barn where I'd hang the leaves for a few months. And that part went great. So the growing was great. The curing and the drying was great. but the next step is to roll them into a cigar. And I was just terrible at it. I taught school in Winooski, Vermont. Jason, you might know.
It's right down the
Winooski.
road.
Yeah, right down the road from you. And at the time, it was an old French Canadian town.
Yeah.
And I had just by a generation missed out on guys who would grow and roll their own cigars. They were all kind of gone. So I never really understood how to do it. So, I did the usual YouTube thing and tried to do that. And they were just awful. I'd roll a cigar and I'd be smoking it. And halfway down, a fire would break out halfway down. I'd start patting it out, and they tasted terrible.
Oh.
My logo, it was called DeFilippi Premiums. I started the company. Our slogan was, nobody has ever asked for a second one. And that's true. Everybody said, oh, let me try one. No one ever wanted a second one. My brother's a woodworker, so he made the wooden form that you dry the cigar in. And so I used it. And when I was done, I sent the cigars to him, and he wrote me back a message and says, I want my name taken off this project. So basically it was a failure, like a lot of the things I try in life, but I'm enjoying myself.
There's automatic cigar rollers, you could buy a machine.
Yeah, I saw that, and I considered that.
Not expensive.
But to tell the truth, I think the problem is my leaves themselves were too brittle. They just didn't have, and I don't know. I'll never know. I haven't done it in a few years, but anyway, that's for any of you potential cigar rollers
out there. My dad smoked cigars of course, it was the '80s, and our house was the most toxic house in the world. But he would smoke cigars pretty much every day, and I remember in our house, it went from the ceiling to about my chest of just there was smoke in the air. And you could actually loud. You could.
Oh wow, them are the good old days.
Yeah,
huh?
We also had a kerosene heater in the center of the living room.
You don't happen to remember what brand name your dad smoked, do you?
It was a red and white. Had an owl on it, I think. Red and white box.
White Owl then?
White Owl must be, yeah.
Yeah, it must have been White Owl. Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
great.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, it's a horrible thing and smelly and cancer-inducing, etc.
Maybe not in the house with children.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, which I'm always out on we call it a deck here. I live in a condo now, but I call it my smoking platform. So I go out there. Yeah. There's a sign that says smoking cigars required in this area. But anyway, so that's that. That's another one of my missteps and dead end roads.
I smoked Swisher Sweets.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I did
it's
a year of those.
Those are the ones you can buy at like the gas station, right?
It's like it's like the cooler. It's like the cheapest, silliest thing in the world.
Yeah, don't they have a wooden holder?
Yes, they do. It's like the wine coolers of cigars.
Yeah, Swisher Sweets. I'd forgotten them.
They tasted good. They had sugar in them.
Yeah. Well, there was a cigar company, I forget the name, right in Vermont, that used to put maple syrup
that's awesome
flavoring. And down on Pine Street in Burlington.
I love Vermont.
Yeah.
They're always doing something like that.
Great. I miss Vermont. We moved down here about 10 years ago to be closer to the grandkids. And since I taught school in Winooski for 20 years, I would walk into the grocery store and see 5 or 10 ex-students running up to me and, hey, Mr. D, how you doing? And that's one of the things I miss. I go down to the Market Basket here, which is a great local grocery store, but I walk in, there's 200 people, and I don't know any of them. They're all strangers to me, which is still something I have trouble getting over.
My first girlfriend ever went to Winooski High School.
Oh, give me a decade and a name, if you would.
Yeah, Michelle Menard in 19. You probably know the Menards. There were 13 of them.
I sure do. I know Jeff and Michelle. Yeah,
yeah.
I didn't know you.
Oh yeah, Michelle. She was the youngest.
Oh, that's great.
Yep,
sure. I knew that family.
Yeah, late 80s.
Yeah, that's what I would guess. Oh, that's terrific.
Yep.
Well, if you're still on speaking terms, say hello to her from Mr. D.
I will.
Wait, Jason, you're still in speaking terms with your first girlfriend ever, and
It's Vermont.
high school. Wait a
Yeah, I
minute.
know.
Says a lot.
I know everyone I've dated, and everyone. Yeah.
And you're on
That says a
friendly
lot about
speaking
you,
terms?
Jason.
Sure, it's been a lot of years. And me and
Good
her
man.
never had it wasn't bad. It was a wonderful. If you could have a wonderful breakup, it was very, very, very normal and whatever. I'm all right. I'm bitter. No. No.
No, I think that says a lot about you. That's classy.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, we went to 2 proms.
Very good.
Yep.
Wow.
I know, right?
I'm like, Vermont, every time you talk, I've never been to Vermont or like really that far north. And every time Jason talks about Vermont, it sounds like a magical place that is very different from the rest of the US.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a great place. And Winooski's different from the rest of Vermont, Jason would tell you too.
Oh
It's
yeah,
a-
Winooski is
great place.
interesting. It's 1 mile, but it's 1 mile
Yeah.
square, and my grandfather was one of the people that was involved in possibly putting a dome over it.
Oh, I wrote
Yeah.
a song about that. I
You
was on the
did?
CBS News singing that song. Wow,
Really?
Dome over Winooski. Buckminster Fuller's idea.
Yeah.
What was your granddad's name, Jason?
Fred Hendy.
Okay, no,
Yep.
doesn't sound familiar.
He was also head of the union in I believe the state or the county. I don't remember what, but it's funny
Oh.
because my dad, he's Sicilian from Brooklyn, and my other side of the family is Lebanese, and they were the ones that had the mafia ties, not the
Okay.
Sicilian from Brooklyn. My
Yeah,
dad
that's
used to
strange.
say, me and your grandfather from Vermont used to go ice fishing, and his 2 goons would be sitting on the shore watching the car
Oh, that's
because he was
great.
head of the union.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's terrific.
Yeah, it was pretty
Great.
interesting to hear about that.
Yeah.
Like,
So you're a Vermonter boy from
Yep.
day one?
yep,
Okay.
Colchester.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, you
Mhm.
know, Middle Road, the dirt road
Oh,
right
yeah.
off the, that's our old farmhouse was a mile
Oh.
down Middle Road.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
Rena just thinks
This
Vermont
means-
is this big.
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a fascinating conversation, which means absolutely nothing to 99% of our viewing
No,
audience,
people enjoy the.
including poor Rena. But that's the way it goes.
Ah, she lives in the big city, L.A.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I
LA's fine. The sun shines most all the time. And
So-
the feeling is layback.
I want to respect your time. Rena, do you have any final question before I ask my final question?
yeah,
Okay,
let's-
yeah.
Yeah, let's because we're at the end of the hour. So let's do the final
is-
question.
Okay. My
Yep.
final question, which you've probably heard before if you listen to Joe, I always ask it to everybody. It's a hypothetical, so you have to use your imagination, which will be easy. Okay. Picture yourself, which is easy because you're there, where you're sitting, and someone comes through the door. They're dressed exactly like you. They look exactly like you. And he says, I'm from the future. Come with me right now. Do you go?
Boy, no. Because my life is so perfect now. I mean, perfect. Perfect family, perfect friends, money in the bank, condo living. I'd say, hit the road, Jack.
That's the first time somebody has said that. Most people go.
Yeah, they go or
Yeah.
they think about it for a while. Then they say,
Yeah.
yeah, I guess I would. One person said didn't even
Nah.
try to sleep with him.
Yeah, no. Although I have to admit, he's a good-looking guy, and I like the way he dresses.
Oh my
This
God.
has been fun, guys.
Yeah,
Thank you
very
so
fun.
much.
All right, awesome. Well, thanks a lot. I want to tell anybody that's listening to please share, like, subscribe, and comment. Also, go to our Instagram, TikTok, and don't forget Patreon. If you want to support us so we can do more of these, that would be fantastic. Because then we can quit our normal jobs and do this all the time. Good. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Jim.
Thank you so much.
Thank
This was
you.
great, Jim.
Thanks. I enjoyed it.